Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another Tackling Taboos podcast hosted by the Ethnic Diversity Network in Openreach. I'm your host, Stephen Adubafor. I'm a project manager in Openreach Strategy, working on the Exchange Exit program, and I'm also the events lead for the Ethnic Diversity Network, the EDN. And I have some amazing guests with me this afternoon to talk about the key topic in the Black community, which is colorism. And I'm sure this expands through many different communities, but we're going to focus specifically today on the Black community, as it is, of course, Black History Month in 2024. We've got some amazing backgrounds as well that we're all sporting, as the theme this year is reclaiming the narratives, and we want to try and look at reclaiming the narrative on the topic of colorism itself. So I'll do less talking now and actually give my guests a chance to introduce themselves. So I will say hello and welcome to Janet.
Hello, everyone. My name's Janet Walker. I work as a data analytics coordinator within an operational governance team, which forms part of national infrastructure. I'm also part of the EDN committee for membership.
Amazing. Thank you, Janet, and welcome again. Yemi, welcome. Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me. My name is Yemi Adelekon, and I work as an HR practice change manager. I'm also the EDN lead for Openreach.
Amazing. Thank you, Yemi, and welcome to the podcast. Fave, hello and welcome.
Hi, my name is Faith. I'm a technical consultancy graduate within Openreach. I work in access architecture and economics, pretty much planning the blueprint for our network. So, yeah.
Amazing. Great to have you on as well, Fave. And last but certainly not least, Asima, welcome.
Hi, my name is Asima Hapter, and as a day job, I work under transformation and change, looking at the people programs. So my job title is a culture manager, and I've been in Openreach for 5 years. So.
Amazing. Welcome to you all, and I'm looking forward to the discussion this afternoon. So I'll start off with the topic of colorism, and I guess it relates specifically to discrimination based on skin color. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be between races, and often, to be fair, in most cases it happens like within races themselves. Dictionary definition, I've actually just pulled it up, is prejudice or discrimination, especially within a racial or ethnic group, favoring people with a lighter skin over those with a darker skin. So that's from just a quick Google on what colorism actually kind of means. So I guess starting off with, I can go to yourself first, Janet. I guess have you seen kind of in your, whether it's a personal experience or people around you, like direct experiences of colorism, and what kind of immediate impacts you think that had on either yourself or the people around you?
So yes, I have personal experiences. So in my family, for example, I have 7 other siblings, and we're not all the same. Well, we're all black, but the shades of our skin tone is completely different. And so you can see that there's some that are a lighter skin tone than others. And even in my own family, like my children, my daughter's a slightly darker shade than myself, and that was something that really bothered her, especially as she was growing up, that her skin was so dark. She felt that she was at a disadvantage, but she's a beautiful girl, but she just felt like that she wasn't as pretty as some of the lighter skinned black girls that she sort of was friends with, and it sort of made it knocked her self-confidence until she started accepting who she is, and things sort of changed for her. And another thing in terms of that, when you look at the historical context of colorism or shadeism, we know that it stemmed from the colonial or slavery times, and we can see there that the lighter skinned slaves were treated more better than the darker skin. So it stemmed from generations. So that's my experience.
And that impact of kind of being better than because of your kind of skin color, and I think that, I mean, my view inherently comes from racism as a as a topic, because if you look at like those like from a white background kind of being the ones who are like colonial, like using the colonial oppression upon people, then of course white was seen as the superior race, and then even within that, then you go into like the actual ethnic minority communities, and then it's like, okay, well, we are more aligned to the white community because we're lighter skinned, therefore like we are better than those who are darker skinned. So I guess that's how I would even see it as a generalization as well. I guess like even Yemi for yourself, like even to build on Janet's points, whether it's something she mentioned specifically or any of your own personal experiences.
Yeah, I guess my first introduction to colorism was growing up in Nigeria, where there were songs. There was a guy called King Sunny Ade, and one of the most popular pop singers back in the day that sang in the local language. And there was this song that he sang that said, um, light translated into English says light skin girl, light skin girl, light skin girl is what I want. And even and people dance to this juju, it was called juju music. People dance to this music and sang it without necessarily knowing what it meant and what that connotation was. And that was my first introduction to the idea that the shade of your skin matters to some people more than others. And then growing up in northern Nigeria as well, so I was like closer to like the Hausa and the Fulani tribes who are naturally fair-skinned. And then I lived in the middle belt where people were a bit darker, and then I lived in the south where people were even darker as well. So over the years growing up, I've seen kind of all the different shades of people, and sometimes the favoritism that people get just because their skin is fair colored, where people would like um, compliment people, and then we had like local saying that would praise the color of people's skin, and that would compare the fair skinned person and compare it to like the beauty of the sun or something. And so even in poetry and songs and dramas, you saw the depiction of the fairer skinned person as being better. But on the flip side, they also had where they celebrated somebody that was dark skinned, and they would compare them to something with shiny skin. And so I think it just depends on where you see it. And then the other side of that experience is also growing up and seeing the generation of young people that just want to be fair skinned, or young men that want fair skinned people, even when they know that they are not naturally fair in complexion. And so there's also that whole thing eventually impacting on their marriages, because you could marry somebody that's fair skinned because they've bleached their skin. Your child could still be dark because that person is actually dark skinned. And so there's that perception of like deception later on when they have a child that's so dark, and you're like, why is the child so dark? Well, it's because your wife is fair skinned but has always bleached her skin. But genetics is genetics, so it's just interesting all the dimensions that this thing shows through.
Yeah, and you touched on a really key point that I can relate to, which is like the music industry and how like that impacts people's view on your skin color. And I think like for myself growing up like in the UK and just the Western world in general, like especially as a teenager, I'd say specifically going through adolescence was where like light skin was like popularized to be like just the most beautiful thing, even sometimes like above like the white beauty and things like this. It was like, your Chris Brown, your Drakes of this world, like even like Beyonce, Rihanna, like that kind of skin color was like, like this is like what beautiful actually looks like. And I think then growing up like kind of into the 20s and later on in life, where I guess the darker skin narrative was kind of coming back around. And for someone like Beyonce, I've just mentioned her, like she released, a song called Brown Skin Girl, and like what that did for the dark skin community and things like this. So I think it's I definitely saw like growing up the impact that had. It was like, if you're not light skinned basically, then you're not beautiful in any shape or form.
And like kind of like following on from like both what Janet and Yemi said, like I can resonate with so much of that, because even in today's world, some of the lyrics, if you listen to some of the music, there is references to like lighties, like in terms of getting a goal. So whilst the narrative is changing in the kind of like visually, there is more representation of like different shades of black women and also black men. There is still like the subtle references that are kind of embedded in the lyrics, which sometimes it can be quite subconscious because you're just you kind of hear it, and it must have an impact in terms of like how people view people. But I guess for me, like growing up, so obviously I'm light skinned, but growing up, people never could guess where I was actually from. So people would assume I'm either mixed race or Jamaican or sometimes even like North African. But I'm actually from Eritrea, in East Africa. And if you look at geographically the people there, like the shades of black does vary. So I'm on the lighter side, but you can see different complexions in Eritrea. Um, and within the community, we have our own sort of colorism. Um, and even like when people are making references of someone, they will say the light one. You
Mm.
know, it's kind of like how you even like point out people. But I definitely saw it within the community as well, in terms of like colorism being like a factor of like beauty standards, like the lighter you are, um, the better you are in that kind of in that race group. So whilst like the industry has also played a role in that in terms of like showing us who they like setting what they think is the beauty standard, that has also like shaped our people's views and our families' views and our communities. So I think there's a lot of unpacking that needs to happen within first as well before we can change and influence
Yeah.
outside. Um, and even like growing up, like it was cooler to be like light skinned or Jamaican. Um, but now I think now we've seen like being people are prouder to be African. We've seen like how much influence it's made in terms of like music, clothing, food that comes like Africa's so rich in different cultures, and I think there's starting to be more of an appreciation of being African. You should be proud of that, but that narrative has changed for me growing up as well. So um, definitely like a lot to kind of still more that needs to be done, but some of it I think also starts at home, like at home with our families when
Yes.
we're talking, like it is our duty to also call
Yes.
it out between us, because it will carry on otherwise for generations to come after us.
Yeah.
No, facts. Janet, you're resonating a lot with that. I don't know if you had a point to build
Uh,
on.
yeah, I mean, as there's so much to unpack from that, to be honest. I keep referencing to my daughter because yeah, she just finished university, and when she was at university, being of a darker complexion, when she would go out, especially in the evenings to clubs, etc., people would approach her and ask her which part of Africa she's from. And then when she told them that she wasn't from Africa, her family from Barbados. Number one, I'd never really heard of Barbados, and number two, because of her skin tone, they didn't believe her. She just, oh, are you Ghanaian, Congolese? Where, which part of Africa are you from? So she always had that to deal with. Um, so yeah, that was quite a challenge for her. But I think listening to everything that's been said so far, we don't want to put it as a sort of a negative thing that black is beautiful, and it doesn't matter what shade you are. And about reclaiming our narratives, it's just us sort of saying that, it's a problem for us sometimes within the black community to accept that no matter what shade you are, whether you're light, dark, and even you were saying that you used to say like lighties in like in the Caribbean community, you used to call people red skin if they were lighter, or that people were more favorable, they'll get the best jobs, the best roles in music industries and acting roles if they were of a lighter complexion. And then, yeah, when you mentioned that, the genetics play a part, with the skin lightening creams that when I found out that in that industry, 25 billion pound industry is you know from just the lightning creams, etc.
Wow.
So, that's something that the manufacturers aren't going to sort of say that it's bad for you, and we know like the health and conditions that stem from that. Yeah, I mean, you talk about like organ failure, etc. So there's a lot of things for us as a Black community to unpack, and just to say that we don't have to. Even in my family or on my husband's side, there's people that to this day still bleach their skin because they want to feel more accepted, which is quite sad.
And I think for me, sorry, I'm going to let Viv come in a sec, but I think for me, when I think of the health side, that is the biggest part that I think about. So number one, the economics doesn't add up. So you spend a lot of money sometimes trying to get all of this bleaching cream. So you're losing money, and then in the process, you're applying things that are poisonous to yourself on your largest organ, which is your skin. And then, of course, it goes straight from your skin into the bloodstreams.
Yeah.
And then over time, it compounds, either creating more work for the kidney to walk through and flush out the toxins, or the toxins stay there. And then years later, we start to hear more about cancers and all manners of problems. And those are problems. And we know that within the health sector as well, that the kind of treatment that you would get as a black person or brown person is not the same that you would get if you are a different kind of race. And so we have to be careful that we don't create self-fulfilling prophecies by going down the route rather than addressing the fact that regardless of your skin shade, the best you owe yourself is to help your current color shine. And that happens by looking after your diet. It happens by looking after your skin, removing makeup at the end of the day. If you're a woman, it happens by wearing your sunscreen, even if you're dark. Yes, we have melanin, but sometimes we think that because we're dark means we don't use sunscreen, but you actually use sunscreen. And for me, it's all of those things that helps us to let our skin shine in the best possible way. And I think when we start to really appreciate that, the power of beauty is in being able to see every single shade. If we all look the same, then there's nothing exciting about that. And I think we just, as a Black community, I feel like we just need to get that message that, and for me, it comes from a place of self-love.
Yes.
We've got to love ourselves enough to say, I love the skin I'm in, and I don't want another one that isn't mine. And that's what I would add to that.
Yeah, 100%.
100%.
Dave, I know you're keen to come in as well. So.
Yeah, I was just going to share my own personal story. So I grew up in Nigeria, so I can really understand what Yemi said, earlier. So like being darker shade is, is, in fact, you hear people even say things like you're black like Dodon, or you're like, you're like, like if they put up the light now, they cannot even find you. I can only see your teeth, when you smile and stuff like that. I had that growing up, and I'm not even going to lie. I did try bleaching cream. I did, Caro White and the rest, but unfortunately, I was beginning to look like a zebra, different shades of black. It wasn't uniform for me, and yeah, I just stopped it. I also could not afford it long term. It was quite expensive. Like that's an expensive venture, but yeah. I was just going to say one of the things that helped me. I know, is people say, "Oh, love your skin, love the skin you were born in." One of the things that helped me was having a friend that would always comment on my skin. I didn't even realize like how good my skin is because I don't have spots or anything, but she was like, "Oh my God, your skin is glowing. Like I can literally see my face through your skin. It's like a mirror or something like yeah." And she would always gas me up like about my skin. I'm like, I don't even have makeup on. She's like, you don't need it, and stuff like that. So yeah, like yeah. So yeah, it made me realize like, oh, okay, maybe my skin isn't so bad, or it's actually okay. People just can't see it, and that's their problem and stuff like that. But yeah. When you see someone with skin that you appreciate, I think it's nice to like let them know that, oh my God, I love your skin, or I love whatever it is you love about them.
Yeah, 100%.
That
self-love, but B, that also community love as well, like uplifting each other in that way, because you don't know what that compliment can do for someone, especially like for whatever they've been through as well. And yeah, I can definitely resonate with like the growing up and like the slurs used like so casually, like but have the undertones of colorism, like in the UK, like to mirror your example in the UK, like if you call someone blick, so it's like black but like extra black, and like yeah, but there's people who are generally that skin color. So it's like, oh yeah, I've been in the sun. I'm blick. It's like, yeah, okay, what's wrong with that? Like,
Mm.
yeah, there's people who are even like darker shade than that, but it's yeah, but it's just used as a slur. But that's where it kind of derives from. So I think yeah, being able to like move away from slurs such as that and like yeah, actually turning that into a positive with like uplifting each other and loving each other in our communities, but also like outside of our communities as well, in that sense as well. Janet, do you have any more gems from your daughter's dissertation? I wonder that that she found.
She was mentioning as well, in terms of the multi-billion-dollar industry that there is within she was sort of saying that there's brands like Fenty, which is, I think it's Rihanna's brand,
Yeah.
and that are really promoting how how good and favorable it is for us to embrace our skin. You don't necessarily have to wear makeup, but if you do, it's nice to be able to go into a store. And that was one of the things that she addressed as well. When you go into like some of the high street stores, there wasn't very it wasn't always accessible to find products that matched your skin tone.
Mm,
So again, that was something that needed to be addressed, and I think the industry are sort of delving more into that. It's a money making thing anyway, so it's to their advantage as well. But having stores that are accessible that you can just go into and buy your products that aren't expensive or more expensive just because it's
Mm.
for Black people is definitely a must. I think she sort of looked at I don't know whether I should mention the names or Victoria's Secrets, where they will face criticism for their lack of diversity, and there's other companies as well, especially like on their catwalks and stuff like
mm,
that. And but overall, she said doing her research and speaking to people, it's something that it is being addressed more, and as a Black people, we need to speak up more. So when you think about our theme, reclaiming narratives, it's up to us to open or amplify our voices to make a difference. And there was something that I saw on social media. It's slightly different to this topic about even like the emojis that you see.
yeah.
There's none about like Afro hair or the black skin and so forth. But if you go into, say, Google or whatever other search engine and put in Afro hair, for example, the more people sort of search those, it will make a difference to us having our own emojis. I mean,
Mm,
come on,
Yeah.
you know.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's so many different things that we can look at, but it for us, it is for us to then do our own research and
Yeah.
educate ourselves to say, yeah, you mentioned so much in terms of the health benefits, our diet, and drinking plenty of water, to
Mhm.
keep our
Sleeping
skin,
well.
alive, like Fav, you were saying about people saying about that melanin popping, you've got naturally beautiful skin, and that just glows without makeup and stuff. And we just have to remember that self-love and take care of our skin because we are beautiful. So yeah.
I think one thing to add for me is also the downside of not addressing um, your misconceptions about colorism, because it gets to a point that even if you use bleaching creams, it gets to a point where there's diminishing returns that starts to happen, where the skin is actually burnt and there's nothing you can literally do about it to get it back to the shade that it used to be. And it's the fact that a lot of those creams dry out the skin. And so ultimately, it almost feels like a short-term gain
Mm.
for a long-term loss. So by the time you're in your 50s and 60s, after 20, 30 years of bleaching your skin, of bleaching your skin, then you start to actually have really terrible skin deteriorating and uneven toned. So
Mm,
everything you gained in your early life, you're going to lose in your later life. And I think the earlier we can embrace ourselves and one of the things that I love now is when I see catwalks with top black supermodels, and you see their shades, and it goes to the shade of dark that I call dark, which is like the Sudan dark shade, and they are beautiful and they are stunning. Um, and I try and remind myself, people are going under the sun tanning beds to get darker. People are using false tanning lotions to get darker. And I think when we forget that is when we think we need to be like people that are trying to be like us. And so it just doesn't add up. that's my perception. It doesn't add up. Like we need to like have a conversation with ourselves. Yeah.
That's true. The level of irony is strong with that one, but yeah, that's it goes back to self-love, because if there's people literally paying hundreds of thousands of pounds to try and be like something that you're also trying to get rid of.
Try to avoid.
It doesn't even make sense.
If you think about it, if everyone loved who they were, then a lot of these industries wouldn't exist. Like,
thank you.
These makeup brands, the bleaching products, the suntan, the fake tan, sunbeds, all of those play a part in like you not loving yourself so that they make profit. So the self-love is if you from a selfish point of view, like you should love yourself, because by not loving yourself you're making other people richer and you're diminishing yourself as well. So keep that money.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Asima, because I think that's the most powerful thing. It's the fact that we're letting others tell us what beauty looks like. And then the people that are telling us what beauty looks like actually have a stake in us believing the lies that they push out. And I think that's probably one of the most important things. Like, who is defining your beauty standards and what do they stand to gain? Because if you love yourself, as you said, Asima, then you would not have a need to buy a bunch of stuff that people are just profiting from. And one of the things that people sometimes say is that sometimes our community, we wear our wealth on our backs, and that just speaks of really stupid investments where we are investing in things that don't add value to our lives.
Dave, I don't know if you wanted to build on that, or you just agreeing.
I just agree.
Yeah. No, amazing. We are slowly come to the end of this podcast, and I know it's been. I feel like we could have spoken about this for another hour and a half. But if you want more, show some love in the comments, and we might do a part 2 if the demand is there. But I wanted to finish off with kind of a bit of a round table with everyone. Just maybe sharing like from some reflections of what we've spoken about today, but like one maybe solution or one way we think that the narrative can be reclaimed in respects to colorism. I'll start actually. Wear sunscreen. Yeah, you mentioned it earlier. Wear sunscreen. I don't care how dark you are, wear sunscreen, because black don't crack, but it will if you don't wear sunscreen. So that's my
That's a good one, Stephen. I'll go next. It all starts from the home. Build your children up and build yourself up, and help them to see themselves as you see them, the things, creations of beauty.
Yeah, I can go next. I feel like I've got 2 hats. I've got like me as a Black female and like the challenges that I'll face in society, but I'm also aware that I have my light skin privilege as well. And my experience growing up here could have been different if maybe I was darker skinned, for example, right? In the UK. So I feel like there's I can be an ally for like, our Black sisters, my Black brothers, but also within like my community is kind of like trying to kind of not call it out in a sense of like, in a negative way, but just kind of educating at home as well within our communities, because I think that plays a big part in how you feel. So I think it all starts at home for me, and we go bigger and want to influence the industry. But I think there are good things happening in the industry where we're seeing more representation. Still not enough, but I think there's still a lot that we can do within our communities to change that narrative, to make it a better place for like everyone, no matter like what shade of Black you are.
Well said. Thank you, Seema. We'll go Faith and then Janet.
Okay, yeah, I definitely do agree that it starts at home or from like your community because yeah, like most of the things I heard growing up, but definitely from, uncles, aunties, friends in primary school. So definitely, um, yeah, if I had more, positive feedback on the color of my skin, I think maybe I would not have tried to bleach it. But yeah, definitely try to educate people around me, like, love your skin. And like I said earlier, like comment on people's skins. Like if you feel like, oh, this skin, like just yeah, I love your skin. What's your skincare routine? Like you're glowing. Yeah. And wear sunscreen. I've recently started wearing sunscreen. I was part of the people that didn't believe that black people should wear sunscreen. But yeah, I have sunscreen now, so wear sunscreen.
SPF 50. I'm telling you, it's not a joke. And last but not least, Janet.
No, I just agree with everything that's been said, and the importance of looking after our skin is on top of the agenda for me, and just encouraging and supporting each other. We were talking about the different shades within our families and so forth. We shouldn't be sort of knocking people because they look darker or whether they're lighter. They're a human being. It's about showing that love and respect for one another, keeping ourselves healthy, keeping ourselves uh, educated to know, what's good for us, and growing in confidence and just sharing that, you know, we are who we are, and we are all good people. So yeah, it's just that really.
Well said. Lovely point to round it off on. Yeah, thank you all so much. Thank you, Faye, Yemi, Janet, and Asima for your time. Thank you, listeners, for your ears, or watchers for for your eyes and attention. Yeah, this has been another Tackling Taboos podcast for the Black History Month series, and yeah, we'll be happy to bring you a few more. So please stay tuned. If you're on the YouTube, please subscribe. Whether you're on YouTube or workplace, please leave a comment on the discussion, any of the points that we've made, any future topics that you think would be amazing to discuss, any ideas or suggestions are always welcome by the EDN. But yeah, that's been another podcast from myself, Stephen, and we'll see you guys very soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye everyone.
Bye.